Hi everyone, and welcome to the Survey Wording Error video lecture. In this video, I want to explore some of the common survey wording errors that you're going to come across. To me, this is one of the most important survey research skills that you can learn, because even if you never conduct your own research project, you will probably participate in hundreds of surveys across your lifetime. You may participate in everything from short customer satisfaction questionnaires to hour-long research surveys. So it's important that you understand what makes it a good and a bad survey question. Depending on what source you refer to, there are a number of question wording errors that can arise in survey research. But for the purposes of this course, I'm going to stick with the 4 common ones for social science research: unclear items, double-barreled questions, negative items or words, and loaded or leading questions. Unclear items are survey questions that are, well, unclear, right? The clarity issue often stems from the issue of conceptualization, meaning that the author is trying to measure a concept that they still see in their minds, but they have not been able to fully put down on paper yet. It may also mean that the final question is too broad to be clear about the actual meaning. For example, let's think about this first question. Are you a criminal? What's the problem with that? Well, first of all, we need to know what makes a person a criminal, right? I drove over the speed limit this morning, so I broke a traffic law, but I didn't get caught. Does that make me a criminal? If I've been convicted of marijuana possession when I was 17, but I'm in my 30s now, does that make me a criminal? If I was convicted of marijuana possession yesterday, does that make a difference? Or does it need to be a felony offense to make me a criminal? What about number 2? Do you agree with marijuana laws? I don't know. What laws are you talking about, right? Are you talking about medical marijuana laws, recreational marijuana laws, marijuana accessibility for juvenile laws, etc.? And that leads me to my third example, and my favorite, because it's a real one. Do you trust the football team? When Dr. Wooldridge was in her PhD program in Florida, she was going into the football stadium with a colleague when a poor master's student came up to them and asked them to complete a quick survey for their thesis. One of the questions was, do you trust the football team? This poor student got an earful from Dr. Wooldridge and her colleague because this question was not operationalized, right? What specifically was the respondent trusting the football team with? Trusting them to win a game, trusting them not to cheat on academics, trusting them not to haze new players. If you have an unclear question, the respondent is going to guess. Well, I think you're asking about pro-marijuana laws, so I agree with them. And that means that different people are going to guess differently, and you're not going to be measuring the concept like you want to be, which means you have internal validity issues. Unclear questions can also cause reliability issues, because if I guess what you mean, that you mean pro-marijuana today, but then I forget, and next week you ask me the same question again, this time I guess you mean anti-marijuana laws, my answer is going to change even though my opinion hasn't. So what do you think the fix is for this? Pretty simple. You need to go back to the conceptualization stage and define the concept more clearly. If you ask someone, have you ever been convicted of a felony offense since you were 18 years old? That's a much better, more specific and reliable question than are you a criminal? The next type of problematic question is the double-barreled question. This means that you're actually asking 2 separate questions at the same time. Do you agree that the United States should stop building more prisons and focus on rehabilitation? Well, I agree we should focus on rehab, but I may also still think that we need to build more prisons. The second question has a similar issue, although it's a little harder to see. Rate your agreement with the following statement. Heads up, that means this is a Likert scale, by the way. The police in my neighborhood protect and serve the community. Okay, here's the issue, protect and serve. Maybe you think they protect but not serve, or vice versa. The great part about double-barreled questions is that there's an easy fix. Make the question into multiple questions. Do you agree that the United States should stop building prisons? Do you agree that the United States should focus on rehabilitation? That way I can answer however I want to each part of the double-barreled statement. Negative items, another easy fix. If you ask people about things they won't do or can't do, then you're bound to end up confusing people. For example, consider this first statement. Don't you believe that we can't do more to help the offender populations? Let's say I answered yes to that statement. What exactly did I just answer yes to you? Don't you believe that we can't do more to help the offender populations? Okay, so I do believe that we can't do more to help the offender populations, meaning I think we are doing everything we can to help offender populations. That's confusing, right? Another type of tricky negative wording is including a not somewhere in the question. How many times have you been tripped by this on a question on a test? Which of the following is not true? I guarantee at least one of you, and probably more, are rolling your eyes right now thinking of that one question you missed because you marked the first true statement you saw without realizing it was a not true situation. That's usually one reason why I try to capitalize all the negatives in my text questions, because we miss things when we read over the questions too fast. The solution, super simple. Reword the question so it's a positive. Which of the following statements is false is much easier to read correctly than which of the following statements is not true. You're also less likely to get someone to respond incorrectly if you avoid the negative altogether and use only positive verbiage. The last type of survey wording error is the loaded or leading question. Loaded or leading questions means that the question suggests a right or a socially acceptable answer. It doesn't force you to respond that way, but it implies that doing so means that you're not choosing the socially accepted answer. For example, consider the question, should concerned dog owners vaccinate their pets? By using the word concerned, you put pet owners who don't vaccinate their pets on the defensive. The question suggests that if you don't want to vaccinate your pets, you're not really concerned with your dogs. And that type of suggestion creates bias in your responses. Instead, ask it this way. Do you think dogs should be required to be vaccinated? That avoids any emotional connotations that are associated with specific word choices like concerned. Questions 2 and 3 also highlight ways that questions can lead you to a specific outcome. In question 2, you're first given a statement reporting that most people engage in drinking behavior, implying a social norm that a majority of people are following. The question then asks, do you drink on the weekends? While you can answer no, the statement prior just informed you that you're now among the 5% and thus the odd man out. So you'd be more likely to select yes regardless of the truth. Similarly, note how question 3 asks the respondent, do you agree with the statement about marijuana? By not providing a disagree option, there's an implicit bias towards selecting agree. Fixes? Well, include neutral language. Avoid words that are highly emotive or highly charged. If you ask respondents to respond to statements, include the agree and disagree option in the question so as to not unconsciously suggest a more correct choice to the respondent. Unfortunately, bad polls exist, and they can cause harm and fear where there is no cause. In 1992, the American Jewish Committee sponsored a poll that found 1 in 5 Americans doubted the Holocaust had ever happened. The question that respondents were asked was, does it seem possible or does it seem impossible to you that the Nazi extermination of the Jews never happened? The response options were impossible it never happened, don't know, and possible it never happened. As you can tell, this is like the kind of negative question. Impossible it never happened means it absolutely happened, but it doesn't sound that way though, does it? The poll finding created an intense reaction in the press and the Jewish community. Newspaper headlines came shouting, is lessons of hate getting through, and ignorance about the Holocaust allows spread of lies to the young. People feared that the school systems were neglecting the Holocaust tragedies, and there were editorials in several major newspapers calling for a revision of school curriculums and museum availability. Now here's the thing, critics quickly raised alarms about the wording of the question, but it took 2 years for the issue to fully die down. In 1994, the Roper Center did the exact same poll with the question revised to read, does it seem possible to you that the Nazi extermination of Jews never happened, or do you feel certain that it happened? This time, they found that over 90% of Americans stated they were certain the Holocaust happened, a much more satisfactory answer than the previous poll. The Roper Polling Center chairman noted that the double negative from the previous questionnaire had thoroughly confused people, causing them to give an answer in opposite of what they meant. He also noted that the previous poll had provided aid and comfort to the skinhead kind of anti-Semitism and needlessly scared the Jewish community. So survey wording is really important. All right, well that concludes our discussion about survey wording errors. Thanks for watching, everyone.